All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday night with Neil Orfield. Some know him as the Showdown Shaman. Some of people know him as the oldest working member at Stochastic. So it's kind of interesting here. What do you got going on? I saw you on the morning show. I was sad. No one said, "Hey, we're scrambling, EMac. We could use you on the morning show."
That's a good point. Somebody could have reached out to you. Yeah, Gajeski actually reached out to me directly because he got last minute tickets to the Packers game. So he was like, "Kind of want to go to this game. Do you want to trade with me sometime?" So some night in October, I'm not going to be on a Showdown Live Before Lock because I'm going to trade that out for Gajeski. So I was just filling in for him today. But yeah, he could have gone straight to his old pal EMac. Would have worked well, and then I wouldn't have been scrambling, making lineups while on a show. Could have worked. Of course, you make even more lineups than I do at this point.
It was not a good day and lose about $200. Won about 400 yesterday, a bulk of it courtesy of Gajeski in college football projections. Nice. So turned 100 into 400 on that, and then I did okay on. I play one lineup over on Yahoo, chasing a little overlay. Today that didn't work out. Freddie Peralta, negative. Yesterday I think I tripled up on my money. So it's fun. I like dabbling. You know me, always looking for an angle, trying to find the best deal out there. For me, it's the grinder. Game within the game.
Just a grinder. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah. So in any event, we can kind of ease on into this. We've got 61 minutes until kickoff here because 8:20 is the kickoff time.
Oh, that's right.
On Sundays. I see we've got about 300 people cruising in here. How are my Seahawks doing? Okay, it looks like they may win here. Lost yet another. I do 3 eliminator teams every year. Lost one in week 1. Lost on Baltimore. I don't know how they lost to the Colts. How they lost? Yeah, the former Colts with Baltimore, the Indianapolis Colts, and then my other one was
You call me the oldest guy on the stream. You're thinking the Baltimore Colts.
I remember when they backed up the Mayflower moving vans and left in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I know you do. You can't make other jokes about me when you remember the Baltimore Colts. That is not part of. At least I don't remember them. I don't know what year they switched the teams there, but
it was a long time ago. But you remember Cleveland moving? They became the Ravens, right?
I do not remember that either.
Oh, okay. So I remember when the Ravens came around, and then obviously the Panthers were a new team, and the Rams. I remember when they were in Los Angeles.
The Rams?
The first time. Georgia Frontier was the owner way back when.
I don't have a great memory, so I don't specifically remember what year that all switched originally from LA to St. Louis. That switch I don't remember.
I'm going to say it was probably the mid to late 80s because Kurt Warner and the Greatest Show on Turf. That was the mid to late 90s, if I remember correctly. So
early 2000s, maybe even. Kurt Warner, I remember.
Oh, the Marshall Falk. Here's the Marshall Plan. Good times. Back when Chris Berman still had a fast.
If anybody's confused about why EMac is hosting the show while he is on the wrong side of the screen, that's EMac has just decided.
I actually saw him in person one time.
Are you frozen?
No, that's you.
If anybody's confused about our positioning on the screens, EMac thinks that because he's looking one way for the entirety of the show, he wants to be facing my direction as though he's looking at me. So that's why you have the host on the wrong side of the screen from every other show we do, which I find hilarious. The reasoning makes sense to me. The reasoning does make sense to me.
Do we get mad at lefties? Is that what the deal is now?
I'm a lefty.
Are you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm ambidextrous. I write left-handed. I throw right-handed.
Oh, interesting.
I play tennis with both hands. I switch back and forth. I'm primarily a righty in sports, though.
Interesting. I was as well as a young lad, but that was back in the day when if you wrote with your left hand, they told you that was your wrong hand.
Yeah, I know.
And they made you switch to your right hand, and I didn't have any problem doing that. So I'm not as good anymore, but I could do just fine either way through elementary school, but I haven't since then. But it was kind of funny because the kid who sat next to me, we had our desks like 2 side by side looking ahead. He was really left-handed and he couldn't use his right hand. And he was left-handed to the point where his name was John. He'd make the J's backwards and stuff. So poor kid.
Wow. Man, that's rough.
Yes. Good times. Good times. But let's get into the little football here. We have almost 1,000 people watching. Okay, time to get down to brass tacks here. Get us up to 150 likes. We got a double up here, and I'm going to drop 10 $1 head-to-heads there in the DK lobby. A little team free money. I won 11 and 17 the last Showdown slate. Not very good. So you're going to want to get in on some of those. And I think I'm playing a $200 player. So that should entice you. Figure out who is it going to be. In the meantime, we are sponsored by Owner's Box. That is a new DFS site. You guys are going to want to think about joining there, because when you do, if you put in $10 coming in through our link, put in $10, they're going to give you a $5 lightning ticket, a $5 contest ticket, and then they're going to match your first deposit up to $500. But wait, there's more. You're going to get 1 week of the NFL Sims package. It used to be a month, but you dilly-dallied. Now it's 1 week. That's a $60 deal. So they're basically say, put in $10. We're going to give you 10 in tickets, and then you get a week of Stochastic Max Sims. You're crazy not to do it. Crazy not to do it. I've used the Sims for 3 weeks now. I had one really awesome week, one neutral week, and clawing back today. A lot of AJ Dillon, a lot of Kelly today. Today was
rough for me. This is my worst week of the season so far. Hopefully we can make it all back on Sunday Night Football. But yeah, did not have any A chain. I was a little bit underweight to the field on Raheem Mostert. Some things went well. I did have a good amount of Keenan Allen, but still I was underweight to the field on Keenan Allen. I had some Tank Dell, so I got some things right. I also, as somebody friendly pointed out in chat, that I was suggesting Justin Fields. I played a lot of Justin Fields. That did not go my way. That looked like just so they didn't do anything differently. They were like, oh yeah, everything's going to change. We're going to let him go instinctively. And that's the thing. It doesn't make it a bad call. Like, we knew that was not an unlikely outcome, that the Bears were going to be absolutely atrocious, but the field didn't really play him that much. He did come in at 3% ownership, so a little bit higher than I anticipated, but didn't work out. But you're not gonna win them when you're trying to make the 1 in 50 kind of call. You're not gonna win them every time.
It can be tough. It can be tough. I see that Chris Williams just gifted 5 YouTube subscriptions out there. Those give you access to, 1, you get a cool badge, and 2, you get to use the fun little emojis. And my wife's like, what? Why are we? I think it's like $1.90 a month or something like that from YouTube, or $2.90. She's like, why is YouTube charging us every month? And I'm like, oh, so I can use the emojis of me and stuff like that. She's like, you're a dork.
Yeah,
go talk with your imaginary friends on the internet. So
she married you, EMac. She knows you're a dork.
Yes, that is true. The reason I couldn't really be on the show today was because I was writing multiple articles this morning. So I'm going to drop the link to the Showdown article, Showdown. And within that, you are going to see that you get both teams by position analysis, and then you get a full player pool ranking for free. All Showdown slates for primetime. It's pretty good. And for Monday Mayhem, I think if it's not posted yet, it'll go live shortly. But I was wrapping up my Monday Mayhem double header article. I've now coined the term Monday Mayhem. I don't think it's catching on. So
I like it. Let's go with it.
We had week 2. We had week 3 is Monday Mayhem. There's week 14 is another Monday Mayhem. And then we can't really count Christmas as Monday Mayhem because they play on Christmas now these days anyway. But kind of fun with the double headers. People were complaining about it, but I thought, why not? I can watch 2 games. It's a good time. You ready to get into the analysis, Neil?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. I will go to my notes here, also known as my amazing article that I have written. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are heading into Las Vegas. This is the first home game for Vegas. They played in Denver and they played in Buffalo, and it was a rough stretch there for Jimmy G. So this is his first home game, but is it really home field advantage if he's never played there while wearing the silver and black? I don't know, Neil. I don't know. On the other side, you got Kenny Pickett. He came in as our 14th overall quarterback on DraftKings for the week, 16th on FanDuel. He's played, to borrow a phrase from Laffy, who borrowed the phrase from The Big Short, plays like dog shit wrapped in cat shit.
I never heard that one.
It's not good. It's not good. The Raiders have the second worst DVOA in the league. That bodes well for him. They're in the bottom third against quarterbacks for allowing fantasy points. That bodes well for him. But he doesn't have Deontay Johnson. How are you feeling about Kenny Pickett, who does not look like he has improved since last year?
I mean, he's one of the only two quarterbacks who can play on this slate. Now, you don't have to play quarterback. Actually, I just saw somebody had asked us that in Discord. And the answer is, yeah, you can totally play a lineup with no quarterback. I don't think it's too cute at all. Neither of these is like an elite rusher. So it's certainly viable to play a lineup with no quarterbacks. With that said, I'm going to have each of these quarterbacks in a majority of my lineup. So actually, I'm not getting to like 80 to 90% of either of these quarterbacks, but currently I've got looks like about 70% Garoppolo in my lineups, about 65% Kenny Pickett in my lineups, and I'm totally happy with that. Pickett does have a little bit more rushing upside than Garoppolo, runs for about 20 yards per game, picks up the odd rushing touchdown here or there. So I think Kenny Pickett, you can play with fewer pass catchers potentially than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm never running Jimmy G out there naked. I'm always playing with at least one pass catcher, even when he's in the flex, preferably multiple if you've got him in the captain spot. But I like both of these quarterbacks quite a bit for this one single game. I think that, you quarterbacks typically are going to project the best. They're often going to be among the highest scorers, and I would expect that here. Like Kenny Pickett, yeah, he's nothing great, but against this Las Vegas defense, he's going to be in a good spot to succeed. Whether he can actually capitalize on it, we'll see. But I think Kenny Pickett is going to be. I'm going to be probably. It looks like I'm going to be overweight to the field as things stand right now. What are you doing with these quarterbacks?
Well, first I'm going to say hit that like button. We're not even at 150 yet. We have 800 or 900 people watching now. Hit that like button. Get us up to 150. I'm going to drop those team free money lineups in there. I tell you what, I'm going to give you guys a guarantee. Let me go look at my lineup. I am not going to play both quarterback. I'm only going to play one quarterback in my lineup. It's not the captain, and I'm also playing a $200 player. It's going to cost you $1 to check it out, but and a couple likes. Hit that like button, get us there. So Pickett was someone I ended up with a lot on in the best ball streets, Neil. 107 teams on DraftKings. I did 7 or 8 on Drafters, the vast majority of which I did by myself, except for when I went to Mexico for a week and then couldn't access DraftKings. So I just, I guess whatever was in my queue was picked on those slow drafts. So them's the breaks from time to time. Fortunately, I did set up my queue, but I've got a lot out there. And Pickett was someone I was really looking at. And I liked him with Pickens as well, because you could kind of get that backdoor stack a little bit later. Now, any given Sunday is what happens in the NFL. Do you think the Cowboys fans thought they were had the chance of losing today?
No, speaking of losing in Survivor, that was my pick this week, was the Cowboys over Arizona. I thought this was a gimme week for me. Take the free money now, hope for the best going forward, and just losing outright in Arizona is absolutely brutal. Honestly, I was starting to think Dallas was one of the best teams in the league. Obviously, one game doesn't change all that, but certainly gives me pause.
4-0. And then they lost at home to the Cardinals, who put a big old stamp on this one, a forever stamp, if you will, on this season. So Pickett is someone I thought we would see take a little bit of a step this year. He has decent mobility, as you pointed out. I like that. It's been 2 games, all right? We're not going to indict him for that. But it's one of those that I think we'll see better days, and this is a defense where I think it can happen. The run game, though, I don't know. This looks like we have a split backfield here with Najee Harris. Remember Ben Roethlisberger, that game when Najee had like 14 catches or whatever? Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. It's Jaylen Warren now that is getting the pass catching stuff. His price has increased since we last saw these guys on a showdown slate. Warren's, that is. Najee Harris essentially tied to reaching the end zone at this point, and it looks like it's about a 60-40 split with the passing work going to Warren, which is, we're talking a lot about DK because it's full PPR and it's more unique scoring, or it's more unique puzzle with the multiplier and the multiplier on salary, not just the fantasy points. So that's why we talk about that a little bit more, and it has a more expansive range of salaries. So this is a trickier puzzle to put together, but I don't like Najee Harris. I'm going to be under the field. I don't know where the field is at just yet, but I'm going to be under the field just on principle alone. Is that a boomer take?
You're talking about Najee Harris now?
Najee down. Jaylen Warren up. Even though Jaylen Warren, it's like the old saying about backup quarterbacks, right? They're the favorite quarterback in every city. It's the backup quarterback when you have a bad team, right? Because you're like, well, put that guy in, right? Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
Jaylen Warren would probably start for about a quarter of the teams in the league. Najee Harris would probably start for half of the teams in the league. So
you think so? You think you really feel good about these running backs, better than I feel about them?
I'm saying they're bad. And starting running backs, we got to hope too much of the league is still hand in the dirt, guys. Run into the back of the tackles. That's the teams Najee Harris would start for. What I'm trying to point out is I don't think Jaylen Warren has a whole lot of extra talent. This isn't like Paul. Here's a better example: Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay.
Clearly, Pollard made the Pro Bowl last year as the second running back, right? He is the talent. Jaylen Warren, the disparity in talent, not that much. He's just a little bit better in the passing game and a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, no, okay. So we're on the same page in that sense that I don't think that Jaylen Warren is some special talent world beater. I do think that he might be better than Najee Harris. I think that it's pretty close between those two. I don't think that there's a huge differential in talent there. So to be honest, I came in expecting to play some Najee Harris, thinking nobody wants to click Najee Harris. Like, he is the least sexy click of all time. No, like, he's been so bad. It's very clear to anybody who's watching these games that Jaylen Warren is taking on a bigger and bigger role. And the team is now saying that it's going to be a split backfield. So I kind of anticipated Najee Harris being 2,400 more expensive than Jaylen Warren. I was thinking that we were going to come into this and nobody in the world was going to play Najee Harris. So then you could pay up to be contrarian. That's not what our tools are saying, though. So right now, I think that you and I are on the same page. I was inclined to pay up to be contrarian with Najee Harris, take a shot there. But if we are going to see, and we have Najee Harris projected for 5% captain ownership, 23% util ownership, and he's 8,800, 2,400 more expensive than Jaylen Warren. We have Jaylen Warren at like just barely a little bit more ownership than Najee Harris, and he's again 2,400 less expensive with about the same role. Then I'd rather just play more of Jaylen Warren if that is the way it's going to pan out. Now, I don't know if that's how it's really going to play out. I think this is a tough situation to predict because who knows how much of the field is really paying attention to this team and what's being said about it. So maybe we do get lower ownership on Najee than we have projected. But man, with the way we have it projected right now, it's hard for me to want to play much Najee at all. If he's going to be in 28% of lineups with how bad he is and how expensive he is, I think I would be more inclined to just go to Jaylen Warren if this holds. So I think you and I are I think it sounds like we're on the same page.
Yes. And wow, chat got us up to 200 likes, well past 150. So I just put in 10 $1 head-to-heads. Username EMac in the DraftKings lobby. Those are $1 head-to-heads because I am #last of the big spenders. Let's move on to our wide receiver spot. We're going to go by position here, and then we're going to talk strategy. We're going to talk about where all the ownership lands, et cetera. But I want to remind everybody, if you go to stokastic.com/avatar, download the Stokastic Avatar, upload that to your DFS site of choice, finish top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 people. That's first, second, or third, no ties. So if you were part of the crew that split the $1 million 100 ways on Thursday, that wouldn't count as a first, second, or third. That would count as 100, right? So we don't do it that way, but you get 30 days of Stokastic Premium. All you got to do is tweet a screenshot with that Stokastic Avatar visible in the contest, and we'll hook you up. Plus, Lofty's going to get you on the Hall of Fame segment. And we celebrate all wins, large and small. So even if you're not meeting that milestone for the free Stokastic subscription, you can at least have some fun, see your name in lights, and hear Lofty talk about you. It's a good time. Wrapping up running back, Pittsburgh activated Quadre Allison from the practice squad. Anthony McFarland is out. He played a little bit in week 1. I don't remember when he had his injury, if it was week 1 or week 2. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But Harris and Warren have 55% of the snaps to Harris, 41% to Warren over the 2 games here. Harris has 16 carries for 74 yards, 3 catches for a grand total of 2 yards. So you and I have 0 yards, and Najee Harris has 2 through 2 games.
Not exactly.
We might be able to catch him, Neil. We might, and we'd have to get signed. We'd have to clearly it's a whole falderall. But not that good. 30% discount for Warren. That's the big thing. 30% discount on FanDuel, 37% on DraftKings. That makes it easy for us. Wide receiver, Neil, no Deontay Johnson. He is out with a hamstring injury. He is on the injured reserve. So we saw George Pickens score a touchdown in prime time 6 days ago. So he is not going under the radar at all. Allen Robinson II disappointed me. I thought he was going to get some more work. It didn't really come to fruition. I think he has 11 targets through the 2 games. I think it was 6 or 8 the first week, and then the balance in the last one. So I thought he was going to play the slot. Now I'm not formations and all that fun stuff kind of escape me from time to time here, but he is 6'2", 220, 10 years in the league. On the other side, you have the rookie Calvin Austin III. I love how everybody has numbers after their name now. This is
cool.
A lot of fun, actually.
Yeah,
I saw a football player was the 5th. Somebody the 5th.
I didn't see that
something one. Jackson. It was a common name, Jackson. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I went to school with a kid who was the 4th way back then, and he did not name his son the 5th. It was big to do. Big to do.
I'm sure.
In any event, Calvin Austin III, 5'9", 162. So he's kind of the slot type, if you will. But they put a little draft capital there with him. And he is actually, I think he's going to overtake Robinson in the next couple of weeks for target share. Of course, Deontay Johnson coming back whenever so he'll be eligible in week 5. He's going to be there or at week 6, I guess, to splash the pot, but we'll have to see. So the Steelers, I think they're going to be targeting. Now, I don't like to do matchups, but I've read some stuff, and this is not my analysis, but rookie Jacorian Bennett has not been able to cover receivers on the outside.
Okay.
So we're fingers crossed George Pickens gets him a few times. So Pickens, captain viable, cash captain viable. What are your thoughts about this whole receiver room? It should be noted Gunnar Olszewski's out in the concussion protocol, so Miles Boykin will probably be on the field for 5 snaps and half of a target.
Yeah, that's a good note about Gunnar Olszewski. What are we laughing at now?
Because we have to talk about these things on Showdown.
Yeah, no, it's Showdown. You got to talk about every little thing on Showdown. It's all relevant. So yeah, no, we need to mention that. I wasn't joking when I said that's a good note about Gunnar Olszewski. I mean it. Any extra snap for other receivers, that's important on Showdown. So just looking at week 2. So I'm just narrowing it down to week 2 because this is our we didn't have Deontay Johnson, just kind of see how things are shaping up. So George Pickens ran routes on 87.5% of dropbacks, was targeted on 37% of plays. Massive target share there for George Pickens. I'm with you. You can play him certainly at captain. Haven't really thought about the cash equation, whether he's viable there, but it would make sense to me that he might be. But yeah, he's absolutely.
You want to see a good cash game lineup with him as the captain? Play me. Could be
a
bad cash game lineup. Just saying, team free money.
Yeah. No, yeah, you got everybody in chat should play against EMac. I'm not gonna play you in cash today. I'm just gonna play the GPPs. But yeah, certainly George Pickens looks cash viable to me in the captain spot. He's clearly the number 1 option here for the Steelers. After George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, and I don't know if you wanted to do tight ends separately from receivers, but he would be the number 2 receiving option, I would say, in terms of routes run. Pat Freiermuth ran routes on 78% of dropbacks. He was second on the list for Pittsburgh in that category. In terms of target share, though, just 1 target last week. That's a 3.3% target share for Pat Freiermuth. I don't think that holds. I think Pat Freiermuth at some point is going to break out, become more of a focal point. Maybe not like he's not going to be the focal point. It's always going to be George Pickens. It's always going to be Deontay Johnson ahead of Pat Freiermuth. But there was a little bit of a connection last year with Kenny Pickett and Pat Freiermuth. So I think that we're still early in the season. I like Pat Freiermuth here as well. I think that he is probably my second favorite option. Ownership agnostic. Third on the list in terms of route share last week was Calvin Austin. Ran routes on 75% of dropbacks. He was targeted 10% of the time. Allen Robinson was next.
How many dropbacks were there last week?
Looks like there were probably 30.
30. That's not very many. Right?
No, yeah.
So the percentages, you want to know the target share, right? Because I guess that is crucial because these are precious dropbacks. But there were only 30, unlike what we've seen from some other quarterbacks that have been under a lot of scrutiny.
No, absolutely. It's a very small sample size. I'm just so going into last week, I thought it was pretty clear that Allen Robinson was playing ahead of Calvin Austin. Not really clear, but like in week 1, we saw Allen Robinson playing ahead of Calvin Austin. In week 2, we actually had Calvin Austin running more routes, and they had the same target share. They each were targeted 3 times in that game. So not much differentiating Calvin Austin from Allen Robinson from an opportunity perspective. So we're going to have to end up playing the ownership game with those two. I'll get into the ownership in just a second. But then the only other player who ran, Darnell Washington ran 6 routes last week. Following him, it was just Miles Boykin ran 2, Connor Hayward ran 1, Gunnar Olszewski ran 1. So we didn't really have many other great receiving options from the Steelers who really had any kind of opportunity. So yeah, maybe Miles Boykin picks up an extra route or 2 with Gunnar Olszewski being out, but Olszewski wasn't really out there much last week anyway. So I guess not.
I think he only had 1 or 2 offensive snaps.
Yeah. Which was not a huge shock there. So really the guys that we're expecting to get, significant snaps are just Pickens, Freiermuth, Austin, Robinson, Darnell Washington, maybe not significant snaps, but I think that they could be valuable snaps at the very least. He ran 6 routes last week. Boykin only ran 2. I don't know. You could maybe Boykin picks up that 1 from Gunnar Olszewski, or maybe he's due to get a few more snaps. But those are really the only guys that I'm really considering playing. I don't think I'm going to Connor Hayward. But moving to just looking at the ownership of these guys, we have Freiermuth a little bit under-owned actually in both spots. We've got him at 5% captain ownership, 6% chance to be an optimal. We've got him 24% utility ownership, 27% chance to be an optimal. I really like Pat Freiermuth here. He would be my second favorite receiving option after George Pickens of the group. I think that the ownership definitely reasonable for Freiermuth. As far as the others, so we have Calvin Austin projected for 3% captain ownership, 23% util ownership. We have Allen Robinson projected for 3% captain ownership, 19% util ownership. So it's a little bit, I wanted to just come in and say, I prefer Calvin Austin. He's cheaper, but he is getting less ownership. I feel like the ownership is about right on both of them. I mean, we have both a little bit under owned. We've got Calvin Austin, again, 3% captain ownership, 5% chance of being optimal in the captain at 4,200. We have Calvin Austin, 23% util ownership, 27% chance of being optimal. So we actually a little bit under owned in both the captain spot and the util. Allen Robinson, same story. We more or less. We've got 3% captain ownership, 3% chance to be an optimal. There is a 2.7% to 3.2, so slightly positively leveraged for Allen Robinson, and then 19% util ownership, 21% chance to be an optimal in the captain spot. So I really like all of these receivers. I think they're all going a little bit under owned. As you mentioned, great spot against this defense for the Raiders. So I really like all of those receiving options. If I had to rank them, it would be pretty clearly George Pickens number 1, followed by Pat Freiermuth, and this is where it gets a little bit trickier for me. I think I would go Calvin Austin over Allen Robinson. Those two are very close, but Calvin Austin a little bit cheaper, a little bit higher odds of being optimal. So I think I'd go Austin 3rd, Allen Robinson 4th, and then the flyer guy, you might call him a Neil's nobody, Darnell Washington. I think being the big, he's a giant rookie tight end. At some point, you can at least hope that he's going to find the end zone. Not running a ton of routes out there, but you got to think they're going to use him more in the red zone. So I would say Darnell Washington, another guy that I'm considering there.
All right. Notes on Darnell Washington for me. No targets yet.
Yep.
Did get some camp buzz. Did get some preseason buzz. I forget if 3rd or 4th round draft pick. So I think we're gonna hear from him more. Oh, actually, I didn't talk about the Steelers 2 tight end split here, Neil, because no stone unturned. In the tight ends in the first game, they used 2 tight ends on 16% of the snaps. The last game, 43%. That was against Cleveland, as a much better pass rush, and 1 target last game to the tight ends. That was it. I think they're going to get more targets tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll have to block quite as much against the Raiders, but I wanted to call that out. I see Israel Williams. I like to refer to him as IDub. I see he is in the chat. Hello, Israel. And then Chris Williams, brother by another mother, he has left us a super chat for $20. And Chris says, I want to thank you both. I've been on a mini heater. EMac, your baseball takes last night won me another $2,200.
Ooh.
And Neil, you got him another $1,500 as well.
Oh, nice. In NFL?
Yeah, $15,000 already in September. There's still a week left in September. So nice work, Chris. Nice work. Good deal.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear.
Charles Moran. I see Charles. Charles is always quick with the, I don't know what the calls to action.
Yeah,
he remembers all the little exclamation point, whatever. So I remember a few of them, but he certainly knows all of them. So there we go. See, look, we celebrate all wins, big or small. It's because it's a good time. All righty. Defense special teams. Did you know that the Blitzburg Steelers, in my day, they were the Steel Curtain, right? Because every defense had to have a name. You Purple People Eaters, that was before your time. But point being, every monsters of the Midway, way back in the day, the Doomsday Defense for Dallas, the Fearsome Foursome in who's the Fearsome Foursome? I think that was the Rams way back in the day.
Way before my time, EMac.
Yeah. So in any way, Blitzburg, 9 sacks already this season, behind only the Dallas Cowboys, who had 10 going into today. They are 4th in the league with 5 takeaways. Vegas has 4 turnovers, but the Raiders have not yet allowed a sack. That's going to happen tonight. Jimmy G is going to get sacked tonight. Speaking of Jimmy G, 200 yards in week 1, 185 in week 2, 3 total touchdowns, 3 total interceptions, both games on the road. This is like a road game as well, right? It's his first game in front of the Raiders Nation.
I mean, they're cheering for him. That's a little different.
They're cheering for him. You know who wasn't cheering for the offensive coordinator of the Steelers? That would be the Steelers fans. They were chanting to take his job.
Oh, is that right? I missed that.
In the last game, yes, they had. His name is escaping me right now, but Matt Canada. So
that's right. Yeah,
they were calling to fire Matt Canada. He's going to enjoy not being in Pittsburgh tonight. So
right.
But we have Jimmy G in his opener. Is that worth anything to you?
No, I don't really care that it is his opener here. But I think Jimmy G certainly in play. Do you mean as far as it affects the defense?
No. How do you feel about Jimmy G? He's at home, friendly crowd, not necessarily an easier defense than what Denver and Buffalo, but significantly not on the road should be helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be playing a lot of Jimmy G. He's going to be in over half of my lineups at the very least. Could be in, as much as like 70% of my lineups. We've got him looking a little bit under owned, 10% captain ownership, 10.2% chance of being optimal in the captain spot. So not a ton there. Pretty neutral in the captain spot for Jimmy G at 10%. But then in the util, we've got him at 43% ownership, 47% chance of being optimal. So it looks like that is the better place to play Jimmy G. I kind of went over it a little bit earlier, but he has like literally no rushing upside, or very, very little. Doesn't show a lot of rushing upside very often. So I would prefer to have Jimmy G if he's in the captain spot with at least 2 pass catchers in the flex. If you've got him in the flex, at least 1 pass catcher somewhere in your lineup. But yeah, he's going to be in a majority of my lineups tonight.
All right. I love weed. Great name. That's a YouTube chat. For me, it's been half a lifetime ago since I last had. THC was much lower in my day. We didn't have these things on every corner where you could get the gummies. Foreign brownies, yes. Gummies, no. But in any event, I love weed. Says Jimmy. I'm paraphrasing for him. Jimmy is like the Oyster Shack, the Crab Shack. What's that? Red Lobster. Jimmy is like Red Lobster.
What does that
Too
mean?
many crabs from all the porn stars.
I forgot about that narrative. Yeah. And like the Lakers grandmas all love him, I think, or something like that. He went to some basketball game and all the like granny dancers love Jimmy. I mean, who doesn't love Jimmy G? Yeah, no, that might be true, but I think that it's not going to affect his game too much. I'm sure he's got some kind of ointment, some kind of itch cream to keep it under control during the game. So not going to factor it in.
A wise man once said, "See a doctor and get rid of it." Throwing it out there. Words to live by, kids.
That's right.
Oi, let's get this back on track. This will be a link to a show I'm not sending to Mama Mac. Sorry.
You send
she
off
can have the
to Mama
baseball
Mac?
one from yesterday, but I'm not sending her. She's like, I miss you. I want to see you. Can you just send me the links to your show?
Oh,
not
cute.
This one. I'll have to take this out in post-production.
EMac, go see your mom. She misses you.
I'm going to go see her. And then she's going to come stay here in Florida for basically from November through January.
Oh, nice.
It's a long time. So we're gonna be down here in lovely Florida, and she will be celebrating her 80th birthday here with us.
Oh, so your mom is younger than you are?
There were cryogenics were involved. There was this whole space-time continuum, the Marvel universe. I mean, the MCU. I mean, what are we gonna do about that? But yeah. All right, back to our analysis. Let me go back to my notes here. So we hit on Jimmy G. You know who had more rushing yards than Josh Jacobs last week?
Was it Jimmy G?
2 thumbs pointing at this guy. I had 0. Josh Jacobs had -2. Per NFL stats, this is the first time since 1950. I don't think they had stats going back prior to that. So the first time in 73 years that a rushing champion had negative yards when they had the 5 or more carries the following season.
That's not great. It's not great for Josh Jacobs.
Not at all. Not at all. But you know who is bad against the run for all the sacks they get? That would be Pittsburgh. They've allowed almost 400 yards on the ground this season through 2 games.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Josh Jacobs just yet. Certainly 46 yards total so far, through 46 yards on 28 carries so far for Josh Jacobs. Man, if you could just flip these years in terms of like best ball and stuff, I was all the way out on Josh Jacobs last year and he just crushed me. This year, I was like, man, if other people are going to draft him at the end of the 3rd round, I'm going to start taking some Josh Jacobs. Draft a lot of Josh Jacobs, and he's crushing me once again. So maybe I'm just never going to get Josh Jacobs right. Whatever I say here, you shouldn't play him. But 28 attempts through 2 games, that's at the very least somewhat promising. How many targets does he have? Let me pull this up here.
I think he had 6 last week for 5 catches and 51. I don't know what he had in week.
Okay. 1. Yeah. So he's involved in both the running game and the passing game. So that's the beautiful thing about Josh Jacobs. You can count on some volume there for Josh Jacobs, and you'd think going forward at some point he's going to be able to crush. And I think he's one of my favorite plays tonight. Like from a projection standpoint, he's going to be one of the best plays given how involved he is in the game for the Raiders. Let me look up so we have him at 15% ownership in the captain spot, just 11% optimal in the captain spot. So looks a little bit over-owned in the captain spot. In the util, though, we've got him at just 47% ownership with a 53% chance of being optimal. So he looks like a great play, some positive leverage in the utility spot for us, Josh Jacobs. I think that, if you're leaving salary on the table, obviously you can play him in the captain spot. You don't have to correlate him with anybody. So that's the nice thing with a running back. There's no correlations that you really need to worry about. And he can certainly put up a huge score that doesn't benefit anybody other than himself. So I like Josh Jacobs quite a bit tonight. He's going to be one of my highest owned players.
So are you setting any rules to keep him away from any of the other running backs?
No. Okay. Nope. I'm hoping that that's going to go underused by the field. I mean, man, if you had just played A-Chain with Raheem Mostert today, you would have won all the money. Maybe it happens again. But
they combined for 8 touchdowns, Neil, and like 400 yards.
99 fantasy points, just under 100 fantasy points. But getting back to the serious point is sometimes one team is just able to run all over the other team, and multiple running backs will do it. Actually, same thing in Kansas City seemed to be shaking up, where they were just any running back they use is able to run all over the Bears. We could see the same thing here with this Raiders offense against Pittsburgh. So I have no issue playing multiple running backs in the same lineup, and I think it goes a little bit underutilized by the field.
All right, so the rest of the notes are for Jacobs is going to be on the field for around 75% of the snaps. He's going to get the majority of the touches. Jacob Johnson has ticked up, and he actually had the 2nd most snaps, but he's a fullback. If I remember correctly, he does not have a carry in his career. He's been in the league for 4 seasons. He's basically he's seen offensive opportunities in 17 games. He was with New England previously, and he averages I think he has like 20 targets and 17 catches or something, but he averages about a catch a game. So nothing overly exciting there. Amir Abdullah is pretty much going to be used mostly as the 3rd down back or the passing back, but Jacobs fully capable of that role himself. Zamir White is probably going to get a handful of carries, but he really needs something to happen to Jacobs before he's going to come into prominence here. The other important note is Cam Hayward is out for the Steelers. He got hurt in week 1, played just 14 snaps. So that is a big reason why their defense has really struggled against the run. In week 1, McCaffrey got him for 152 yards. Jerome Ford had 106 on Monday after Nick Chubb rushed for 65 before his sadly season-ending knee injury. Speaking of injuries, Devontae Adams, I think, was briefly in the concussion protocol. I couldn't tell if that was end of the game, or he actually was for the first part of practice this week, but he cleared it. So that's not an issue at all. Jacoby Myers missed the last game in the concussion protocol. He's back tonight. He had 2 touchdowns in the first game. Without him last week, it was not Hunter Renfrow stepping into the fray. What the hell did Hunter Renfrow do? He was traded to the Angels, and then he was with the Reds, and the Reds just released him. And now the Raiders don't want to throw him the ball. He had, I think, 13 snaps in the first week and 26 last week. I think he has 2 targets. That was it. I think he had 1 catch. This normally would have been a spot where, I loved playing him last year. He was great in showdowns because he's always cheap, and Carr would throw to him. Jimmy G, not so much, and he's not even on the field. Let's see. He has 1 target this season. Trey Tucker, who has played 9 total snaps, also has 1 target. Neil and EMac 0. So we're not that far behind, Neil. We're not that far behind. And then that brings us to tight end. Darren Waller, no longer here, right? He's in New York playing with the Giants. So that means rookie Michael Mayer is there. And trivia time, Neil. I know you like trivia. You go play bar trivia, right?
I do on Tuesdays.
Who did Austin Hooper play for last year?
The Falcons?
No, Tennessee Titans is the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe he is 5 teams in the last 4 years, something like that. He is a NFL vagabond, if you will. He almost made my cash game lineup, but that's not the tight end I am playing here. How do you feel about Mike Myers?
All right, so I think we have to break down. I feel like with the Raiders in particular, we have to break it down like both weeks, because we had Jacoby Myers was very involved week 1, and then he was out week 2. So it's like you kind of have to break down what happened when Jacoby Myers was there and when he wasn't. So in week 1, we had Devontae Adams running routes on 93% of dropbacks. We had Jacoby Myers second, 79% of dropbacks. We had Austin Hooper third, 48% of dropbacks. Wait, I have this sorted wrong. We had Hunter Renfrow third, 50% of dropbacks. He was running routes. So he was up there in the pecking order with Jacoby Myers. And we had Christian Wilkerson fourth. He is out this game, by the way, inactive. And then followed by Austin Hooper, Michael Mayer. Austin Hooper, though, in week 1 played 48%, ran 48% of routes. Michael Mayer ran 30%. So he was distant behind Austin Hooper in week 1. Now let's take a look at week 2 also, because I want to see what has changed week to week. Why is this not working? Hang on a sec. All right, week 2. So we had Austin Hooper running more than Michael Mayer in week 1. In week 2, we had Devontae Adams, and this is very few routes run in general in week 2, but Devontae Adams, again, 92% route participation. Hunter Renfrow ticked up with Jacoby Myers out, as you would expect, 72%. We had Christian Wilkerson third, running 17 routes. That's 68% of the routes in week 3. In week 2. Now Christian Wilkerson is out. So somebody else is going to benefit from Christian Wilkerson being out. Or maybe that's just Hunter Renfrow, is going to be third and Jacoby Myers jumps back into his spot. But we still had Austin Hooper playing ahead of Michael Mayer. So a lot of people, I think, were coming in hoping that Michael Mayer was going to take over and just be the tight end for this team right away. But we had, again, in week 2, Austin Hooper, 52% of routes run, Michael Mayer 36% route participation. So we still had Austin Hooper ahead of Michael Mayer in week 2. My guess is that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. Who knows? We don't know for sure. But we have Austin Hooper at just 14% ownership, Michael Mayer at 8%. Given the route participation, I feel like the disparity there should maybe even be a little bit higher. But let me take a look at what our tools say. We have Austin Hooper optimal in the captain spot 3% of the time, used 2% of the time. We have him optimal in the util 16% of the time, used 14% of the time. So it looks like Austin Hooper a little bit under-owned according to our tools. Michael Mayer, on the other hand, we have optimal 7% of the time in the util, owned 8% of the time, optimal 1% of the time, owned 1% of the time in the captain spot. So according to our tools, it looks like we have Austin Hooper actually coming in a little bit under-owned and Michael Mayer maybe a little bit over-owned. You follow?
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Are you do you think anything changes this week from what we've seen in the past?
So here's the challenge. I mean, both the tight ends are at really good prices. Right. And you can play them both in the same lineup. That part really doesn't matter on DraftKings because, wait for it, He's $200. The Myers is. Now on FanDuel, there's $500 difference. Probably rather go with Hooper at that point, but they've got the draft capital in this guy, and I think, and we know Jimmy G throws to tight ends, right? That's just kind of what has happened. But rookie tight ends, tough position to learn. You got to, all of a sudden you're dealing with chipping edge rushers that are faster than you, things like that, right? That you didn't really have to worry about in college. So there's a lot of things to think about, much like even second-year quarterbacks like Justin Fields have a lot of things to think about.
It's true. Apparently.
Apparently. Hey, he got a touchdown late.
He did. He did get a late touchdown to give him like 11 fantasy points or something stupid like that.
Crazy. Any given Sunday, Neil. Any given Sunday. So I'm playing both the tight ends. Totally fine with it. I'm okay with Myers. A little expensive on DK. And then Devontae Adams. I mean, come on. It's Devontae Adams. I mean, I couldn't quite make it work for my cash game captain. So I had to reverse course. And I couldn't quite make it work with Brandon Jacobs. I would have preferred those two. So I ended up with Pickens. There's still 4 left. Team free money. EMac username, $1 head-to-heads in the DK lobby. You guys can snag those. But I ended up going with Pickens. But the other guys are still on my roster here. So this team is about as the Raiders are about as consolidated of an offense right now as any team in the league. Right?
Yeah. And they were last year too.
2 pass catchers.
Right.
1 running back right now. So if we guess right, Neil, everybody else is pretty cheap. And that, as they say, could turn the slate on its head.
Yep. I think that it makes things less confusing having Christian Wilkerson out of the game, that he is inactive, because I wasn't sure exactly what to do there, but I feel like with Christian Wilkerson out, we can kind of just assume we're going to go back to week 1, where it's going to be Devontae Adams, number 1, followed by Jacoby Myers, followed by Hunter Renfrow. In terms of like snap participation, who knows how the targets are going to break down, but it feels like that's pretty clearly going to be the top 3 in terms of receivers this week. And then Hooper and Mayer, who knows? At some point, Mayer might, eat into Hooper's snaps a little bit, but for now, I think we still, I'm kind of assuming that Hooper maintains that kind of tight end 1 role, whereas Mayer obviously still going to get some targets, should get some targets, maybe even a red zone opportunity. So at 200, I like Mayer, to be clear. I'm not trying to say you should not play a 200 Mayer, because 1 touchdown for Michael Mayer on a showdown slate, that is going to be enough to pay off his salary. But Hooper clearly playing a little bit ahead of him right now.
That was a lot of talking. Oh, we probably should hit the defense here. So the defense survey says the Raiders are one of 4 teams this season without a takeaway. The only team worse than them would be the Giants, who don't have one, and they've played 1 extra game. The Raiders could be in that bucket if they do not get one tonight. Pittsburgh does have 3 interceptions and a fumble that they've allowed, and they also have allowed 7 sacks. Las Vegas has just 4 sacks on the season, but I'm thinking they're going to get to pick it a couple times tonight at home. Jamie Moore says $1 super chat here, he's using his member chat here in YouTube. He says he's donating $1 for my head-to-heads. Hey, if you played me the last game, my gift was to you. I was giving back to the community on Thursday night. Did not go well for me. So we'll see if I can regroup and get there tonight. But hey, if you want to read my article, you can get a pretty good idea who I'm going to play in cash. I'm going to drop that link in there into chat one more time. We have 14 minutes until a lock. How are you doing on your teams, Neil?
That is a good question. I have not submitted any teams right now. So right now I would be drawing dead. So I'm gonna put a crunch into my lineup at the very least. Make sure that I have something in there for DraftKings that looks viable.
All right. So I have my cash game lineup in. I am just putting in my ownership percentages here into a Fantasy Cruncher. That is an add-on that you can get here at Stochastic. You can also get the lineup generator. And we have a nice little deal for the lineup generator. That is, if you use, let's see, I believe it is promo code REDZONE, gets you the lineup generator for $9.99 for your first week. So what is the lineup generator? Well, it generates lineups for you. But what's going in behind it? All that stuff we talked about with the Sims, the boom bust tool, the leverage, the ownership, the correlation, that's all being handled in the lineup generator. The lineup generator will do the DraftKings and FanDuel main slates, and it will also do the 3 primetime slates. The other nice thing for the primetime slate, because what is there, like, I'm not good at math, like probably 6,000 combinations of usable lineups or something. So there is kind of a finite number. You can be unique. Just play 7 $200 or 6 $200 players on DraftKings. I don't advise it, but no one's going to dupe you, right? So this is taking into all of that into account. But what you can do on the inputs for the Showdown lineup generator is you could say, do I think both teams score above expectations? Is one above, is one below, right? So there's 4 different combinations of that. Both teams below, one above, one below, right? So you can do that, and that will help create different game scripts for you. So you'll want to check that out. It's going to put up plus EV lineups, and it's leveraging all the stuff we do with Sims, and the boom bust tool and all of that is actually going on behind the scenes here. So promo code RedZone, $9.99 for your first week. You also get to go into Discord as well, the premium channels. All right, Neil, who is going to be – oh, look at that. Malcolm Revamp says, who do you like as your cash game captain or MVP? So I kind of hit on that. I landed on Pickens because I couldn't make anything else work. I would have preferred – this morning I thought it was going to be Devonta Adams. But then I started looking at the Steelers the more and more as I was writing my article, and they've allowed almost 400 rushing yards through 2 games. Brandon Jacobs, -2 last week, led the league last year. Which of those do you think is going to continue? Josh Jacobs. Brandon Jacobs, New York Giants, a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember him.
Long time ago. Was he in tech?
Was he a 1-2 punch?
Yeah.
Wasn't he like the same time as like Tiki Barber? Weren't they a 1-2 punch? Or
Ron Dane was in there at some point. Thunder and Lightning. Oh, Tiki Barber. Would you rather be Derek Carr's car or Tiki Barber's barber?
Probably a barber. I'd rather be just like a human than a car, I think.
Knight Rider. Lost. There's a reference lost on the youth. Lost on David
was
Hasselhoff.
Okay.
Yeah. Good times. Good times. What about the kickers? Well, that's a really good point, because we like to talk about kickers here. So let's look for the notes. Chris Boswell made both of his attempts this season, both from beyond 50, but only 2 attempts. That was it. Cash game lineup staple, Daniel Carlson, gives Justin Tucker a run for his money as the best kicker in the league. 2 years ago, he led the league with 40 makes and 43 field goal attempts, and he was a Pro Bowler, number 2 in the All-Pro. Last year, he was an All-Pro, 11 of 13 from beyond 50 yards. Pretty good. Really like Carlson.
Clearly one of the best kickers in the game. It's going to pain me as a Vikings fan for the rest of his career that we cut him after one bad game. Mike Zimmer had a short fuse, and you got to think like
you had me at Mike Zimmer. That's the punchline.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Zimmer cut him after one bad game. Granted, he missed some important field goals against the Packers, division rival for the Vikings, but man, he was a rookie. We cut him after one bad game, and then he's been just great the rest of his career. Yeah, he's clearly one of the best kickers in the game. He looks great in the tools also for this game. So regardless of the rest of his career, we have him looking under-owned both in the util and the captain site. We have Daniel Carlson at 3% captain ownership, 5% chance of being optimal in the captain, 21% util ownership, 27% chance of being optimal in the util. He is our highest leverage play on the entire slate in terms of being under-owned relative to what he should be according to our sims. So looks fantastic. And Chris Boswell, I should say, is number 2 there. So if you want to talk about both kickers, both are looking very under-owned in the tools. We have Boswell at 2% captain ownership, 3% chance of being optimal, 21% util ownership, 26% chance of being optimal. So both of these kickers look fantastic in our Showdown tool.
Yeah, and Boswell sort of gets the short shrift. I know they changed Heinz Fields, the sponsor of it. For the life of me, I can't remember. But that actually is one of the toughest stadiums to kick in with the way the wind swirls around it. Not quite like it did once upon a time at Three Rivers Stadium, but it is just the same. The Three Rivers Stadium was probably before your time.
I don't remember, but I'm also not really good at just like remembering stadiums. Like I couldn't name all of the NFL stadiums currently, and I watch the games on TV like several every week, and I still remember the names of the stadiums at this point.
It's kind of tough. The constantly changing doesn't help either.
I barely remember that it's called the U.S. Bank Stadium. You're in Minnesota.
What did it used to be?
The Metrodome.
I prefer the Metrodome. You know who's not in any of my captain lineups, and I've built 87 lineups so far? Najee Harris.
Yeah, I mean
Najee Harris. Josh Jacobs or Jimmy G in flex. We have 8 minutes to go. I'm going to submit my lineups here in just a second. I would play Josh Jacobs. You get it regardless of site. You get passing game, you get the running game. You're going to get 75% of the snaps to him, 80% of the touches to the position. I would go that route.
Yeah. I don't know, like that's not the kind of question that you should necessarily be asking in a vacuum, because I think that it kind of depends on the rest of the lineup. Like if you do have Devontae Adams in the captain spot, well, then maybe you think about playing Jimmy G in the flex. So like there are some lineups where maybe, but I think just like as a general rule, I agree with you, EMac, that it is Josh Jacobs looks better in the tools, has better odds of being optimal in the flex.
Candlestick Park was windy. Yes, the original Candlestick Park. Oh, the baseball stadiums / football stadium, the multi-purpose, not the Kingdom, but like the actual outdoor ones where like San Diego had one, Candlestick Park was one, where for the first part of fall, it would be still the baseball infield. So there'd be dirt on part of the field. Do you remember those, Neil?
No.
Oh, my God. Oh, well, it's weird that Neil doesn't remember that because he is older than me, but that Men in Black technology, that sort of erased a couple decades of his memory.
That's funny. That's funny.
That's all. Taking Jacobs 10 times out of 10. Username Eric. I can get behind that username. All caps, spelled correctly. Bonus points. Yes, the Raiders did play on dirt the most recently. The Raiders have been a nomadic team. There was their dalliance with Los Angeles, their dalliance with Irwindale, Oakland. Now they're in Vegas. Just interesting, just interesting. We talked about promo code Red Zone. We talked about the lineup generator. We talked about Owner's Box at the top, but a reminder, Owner's Box is pretty good right now. Sign up through our link, make a $10 deposit. They will give you a $5 lightning ticket and a $5 contest ticket. We're up against lock, so I'm not going to go into all those particulars, but I will drop the link into chat where you can read about that on our landing page. But you also get a deposit bonus matched up to $500. And oh, by the way, by coming in through our link, you're going to get 1 week of the Stochastic NFL Sims Max package. Well worth it. You're depositing 10. They're giving you 2 $5 contest tickets, and we're giving you a week free of Stochastic. Sign up your mom, your girlfriend, your dog. It's the way to do it. I mean, hypothetically, right? Does your dog have a credit card?
Of course he's got a credit card. He plays DraftKings every week, 150 lineups.
Okay, I figured. So there we go. All right, let me upload these lineups. So that means I got to download the old CSV here. Let's see, what else do we have? How much overlay was there today on Owner's Box? Chat is asking.
I don't know off the top of my head. There was some. I don't know what the number was.
I want to say it was at least 30%. When 90 minutes before lock, their contest was only 40% full.
Right.
I'm guessing other people circle back because, our Sims product does handle their main slate roster construction, and it's super flex. And oh, by the way they do their pricing doesn't mean you want to slam a quarterback into that extra super flex spot. They are creating some nuance there. Oh dear God, we only have 3 minutes here to upload our lineups. Neil.
How are your lineups looking, EMac?
I don't know because the little wheel of death is spinning right now. So I am going to panic for just a moment. But why don't
do I have time to handle one on FanDuel? Here's my question: do I have time to handle one on FanDuel? Maybe I'll do that while you're if I can.
Yes, please, because I would prefer to not run my cash game lineup in everything.
All right. Unfortunately,
that has happened in the past, Neil. It has been good and it has been bad.
All right. Well, get your lineups in there. Make sure you get those done. All right. Now I'm going to try to build one lineup for a large field contest. Unfortunately, I missed all of the large field contests that I would normally be very interested in playing. So I'm going to be playing contests that have just hundreds of people instead of thousands of people in them. Looking at FanDuel, and I'm, of course, going to pull up our single game tool for FanDuel. That's how I'm going to start. So we have, looking in the captain spot, we have Jacobs a little bit over-owned in the captain spot on FanDuel. We got both quarterbacks slightly under-owned on FanDuel, so I can consider those as options. Still getting a good amount of ownership. I'm trying to think if there's anybody. I think I'm going to go Pat Freiermuth in the captain spot. I think that he is a guy that I'm going all in on Pat Freiermuth today. I don't know why. It just feels like this is a matchup where he should be able to crush. He's just he's a guy that I think is talented, is going to have a good career. So I'm going to start with Freiermuth in the captain spot. Then I'm going to go ahead and throw Pickett into the flex and see what I have left over. So now I have 12,666 left over for my remaining 3 spots. Now I think here is where maybe I consider, do I go double tight end? I don't think I'm going to go to Darnell Washington. Obviously I could. That's going to be a low-owned combo, Washington and Freiermuth together. So that's something I could think about. I'm kind of interested in, maybe I just go to Daniel Carlson here to start from Las Vegas. I'm going to go with 1 stud and 1 cheap guy to round out my roster. Josh Jacobs at 12,500. I'm gonna do that and allow me to leave a little bit of salary on the table. So now I have 16,500 left over. So I could fit in Devontae Adams, but for a large field, particularly in a contest that has thousands and thousands of people, and I wouldn't consider doing it because you're not leaving enough salary on the table. You're not going to be unique, even with unique players. If you're not leaving salary on the table in these showdowns, I've found you're going to, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, be duped a lot. So I would rather go down to who else do I think has a chance to outscore Devontae Adams, which is what I need here because Devontae Adams would fit. I think there's a chance that George Pickens outscores him. So I'm going to throw George Pickens in there. So now I'm leaving 5,500 on the table, which seems insane. But the only player that I could upgrade, the only players that I could upgrade here to Devontae Adams would be Kenny Pickett or Josh Jacobs. I think it's plausible that both of them outscore him or George Pickens. So those are the 3 that I could plausibly upgrade. I couldn't upgrade Daniel Carlson. I couldn't upgrade Pat Freiermuth to Devontae Adams. So I do think that those are both players that could plausibly outscore him. So even leaving 5,500 on the table, I think that this is a lineup that could theoretically win. So I'm going to enter it, not in the contest that I want to be in, but I think that is, and the contest is full. So I'm apparently not going to enter. I'll enter it in a different contest, I guess, instead. And it's not, it didn't save my lineup. All right. So I'm not even playing that lineup that I just read off to you because it did not save my lineup. I don't have time to redo it. I don't remember exactly what I did. But that's kind of how I go about hand building. Just think about, who do I want in the captain spot? How can I build around that, build a lineup that is going to be unique? EMac, we're down to seconds remaining. How are you doing?
I'm good. I got him, and I
okay.
appreciate
I thought I was still buying you time that whole time.
Oh no, you were on a roll, so I didn't want to interrupt because I was like, "Oh, how's he going to finish this lineup up?" I'm seeing some salary being left on the table. So
yeah, I left a little salary on that one, and then of course didn't get to use it.
All right. Well, while you were doing that, I quickly made one over there on Yahoo because there was a little overlay in one of their smaller contests. So I jumped in a $15 one there. Let me go. Okay, so. Where did they and so 124 people were joined, so there were 26 empty spots in there. So I mentioned we kind of mentioned at the top of the show, I like to look for these little angles. That's one of the ways you can play reduced rake over there. Are the prize pools as big? No, they're not, but they're also winnable, right? And on I forget, I guess it must have been Monday. I forget it was Monday or it was the Monday night showdown. I ended up with some weird thing where I didn't have Chubb. I had Pickens as my captain. I did not put Pickens as my captain tonight, but I did want Devontae Adams over there. But I ended up, I think I got top 10 for like $150 or something like that. And I made one lineup there. I just made it quickly. So you got to look for these little things. We saw yesterday that the 3 MLBs, the 3 main sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo, each ran a different main slate for baseball. DraftKings did the 1 o'clock slate, and then those 2 1 o'clock games got postponed. So it was a 2 o'clock game. Their contest didn't fill because it was a weird time. Yahoo went at 4 o'clock for the rest of the games. Their contest didn't fill because it was a weird time. And then FanDuel went 640, going with 5 games, while the other 2 sites circled back at 7 and did the 4 games after that. So holiday weekends, odd weekends like this, that's when you could find you play reduced rake.
Yeah.
In a lot of these times. And I mean, God, even on Yahoo, where they used to have, 10 or 11% rake, contest I'm in has 11.1%, but they're big tournaments now. They have 12, 13, 14% rake. So they've kind of exceeded that cap. You got to you get in where these little, the optimizer bros and et cetera are not in there.
Get in where the getting's good. Isn't that what they say?
The hand builders.
Yeah.
Ooh, did you see that power surge?
I did not see the power surge. Is it just the mention of hand builders in EMac's house? Just the power goes off. Here's an interesting note. Guitarzy, and I just want to, he says, DK just cashed out the main slate at the same time as lock. They do that regularly. I think they do that intentionally. They wait until the lock of Showdown to pay out the main slate because they want people depositing for the Showdown slate. I think that's like a common thing that literally within seconds of the lock. I don't know if it's every week on Sunday, but pretty frequently on Sundays. So just prepare for that. Pretty sure it's intentional. I
never. I keep a pretty hefty balance, Neil, so I don't have to worry about that.
I don't. I withdraw whenever I have any kind of balance. So it's been a concern for me right at times. I'm like, I don't really want to deposit, so I wait, and then it's like, oh, right at lock every time.
Well, I'm getting a new air conditioner for this place in Florida, so I had to reach out to support. It'd been a while since I did a withdrawal, and I didn't want to wait around for a check. So I'm like, what are you guys going to do? Bank wires. They will do bank wires. So.
Yeah. All right. EMac,
you can end it. This is your ship.
Oh, I'm in it. Okay. Well, I know people want to go watch this game. I want to go watch this game. My wife and I are actually going to go out to eat to a sports bar. I want to go eat dinner. I'm excited about that. So we're going to get going. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us this whole time. And if you haven't hit the like button, please do hit the like button. Helps us out quite a bit. Let's go make some money tonight. Good luck.